Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's 10 a.m. on the West Coast, early afternoon on the East Coast, and dinner time and early evening over in Europe. So thank you very much for joining us for the weekly webinar at SMB Nation. We'll get to the webinar in a minute because this is a pretty exciting format that we're rolling with today, but a little bit of housekeeping up front as always. So be sure to use the chat feature to ask questions, and we'll be able to respond to that. If I could have people go ahead and mute in the background, mute the laptop for the echo that we have. The other thing would be to be aware that we're just a few weeks out from the SMB Nation Fall Conference at Microsoft Redmond. And the Fall Conference has 3 pillar messages. So Office 365, Windows 10, and Azure. It's all at fall2015.smbnation.com. We look forward to seeing you. So it's time to kind of on that, and there's some really interesting twists this year. The Microsoft Office 365 team has a really high level of engagement, as well as bike jerseys if you come on the Monday bike ride around Bainbridge Island. Other than that, hold fast as we start to put the final touches in a bow tie on an 18-city tour that will start before end of year and go well into 2016, a one-day format that we think you'll enjoy. And just keep an eye on what we're doing otherwise with our newsletter and our webinars and so on. So with that all said, I have Scott Markley from nGenx. Scott, I'm going to get that name wrong. It looks like a stock symbol. Sir, my apologies. I could trade it, but I can't say it. So why don't we jump right into it? I mean, today's a really interesting format that we're kind of shaking up what a webinar normally is. You know, we're gonna roll with a little more interactivity. So I'm excited. Why don't you introduce your company and yourself, sir?
Great, thank you, Harry. Really appreciate it, and I want to thank the SMB Nation team for having us on today, and all of our attendees for taking a few minutes out of the day to talk a little bit about workspace as a service and desktop as a service. You know, the goal here today, as Harry mentioned, is to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have chat questions or I say something that you think is interesting or disagree with, please feel free to put it in the chat. We'll get them read out at the end. And one of the things that I encouraged Harry to do throughout the presentation was to kind of interject, provide some color commentary. We're going to keep it really short, 5 or 6 slides. Introduce myself, the company, and want to introduce the space a little bit and some of the things that we're seeing out there today. So I guess with that, I believe we have a poll question ready that we can put up for everybody. And just a quick question to kind of give us an idea of where everybody's at. And I'll give you a few minutes to respond and reply, and then we'll get started.
Scott, I'm switching over to handheld. I got a couple of comments that people thought I was coming a little bit light on my my headset. Does this sound better, sir, while people are answering the poll?
Yeah, loud and clear there, Harry. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we'll have to learn our new headset, darn it.
I love technology, right?
Yes, sir. Okay, how we doing on that polling? Yeah, that should be.
Excellent. Well, that looks good. It gives us a good idea of where we stand here today. And with that, I will, if everyone can see my screen again.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So let me give a bit of background about nGenx. nGenx is a desktop as a service or a workspace as a service provider, meaning that we provide you a turnkey offering in those spaces along the lines of desktop and application delivery. We've studied the industry for quite a while. We've been doing this for about 15 years. To say we know where the bodies are buried when it comes to selling and implementing these services would definitely be an understatement. We have guys that have been quoted throughout industry articles. We've served on various panels from being a Citrix service provider founding member to an elite partner with Independence IT to an early adopter of the Google Compute Engine platform. When we say we get in and we know the technology, we really do. Our team has developed the products automation and support services that the market needs to be successful. Rolling your own is great. Rolling your own is not always scalable. So, when you come to a desktop as a service provider, one of the things that you want to look for is a high volume provisioning platform, possibly a comprehensive support system. So are there tools and implementations in place for you to be able to take complicated tasks or repetitive tasks and either simplify them or automate them, or have they been automated for you? And that's certainly one of the things that nGenx has built and provided over the years to its partner community. Our platform does allow you to be, as the service provider, to be the first line of defense. So you're in charge of billing, you handle the customer interactions, and they get escalated to us as needed. So you see the tools that you have in front of you. Pretty much if what you need to accomplish with those tools is not possible, that's an escalation. But by and large, a lot of the interaction is directly between you and the client. Our core offering is the N workspace, N meaning infinity as far as possibilities and potential that you can deliver to your clients. It is a workspace as a service offering. It has all of the elements that a business needs to operate, including Office 365, as you mentioned at the beginning of the call, lots of exciting things going on there. We can do SPLA through Microsoft, so whether it be SQL or Visio or Project, all of those are potentials. And there's thousands of ISV titles that we've certified over the years. We've kind of been a pioneer in the application virtualization space. So taking legacy applications, customized line of business applications, and delivering them to the end user consistently over the years has been one of the things that we kind of put our foot in the ground and say this is who we are, this is what we do. With all that said, the back-end infrastructure is supplied, support on any device, anywhere. The security and compliance that businesses require and demand these days is baked right in. And then you have things like forensic reporting, detailed account summaries. So you know as a service provider what's going on and when. And just a little feather in the cap, nGenx is a top 100 cloud service provider as listed in Talking Cloud, Citrix service provider, partner, and visionary partner of the year. As I had mentioned, an elite partner with a company by the name of Independence IT. Maintaining our 100% channel focus is paramount to the board and the executive team here and the sales team. So we only move product through managed service providers, VARS, break-fix shops, some telecom agents, and independent software vendors. We are committed to the channel. That's what we've been built on, and that's what we're built for. And then last but not least, the white labeling effect of the product. Being able to put your spin, your marketing philosophy onto the product and determine, how do you want to brand it? Is it a powered by nGenx solution? Is it a completely white label service provider solution? There's a lot of flexibility there. Are any questions on any of that? I'd love to, kind of.
No. I just wanted to one shout out to the whole compliance and security area where I've really seen desktop as a service take off is, in fact, in compliance scenarios. So that, I guess I look at that as much as a sort of a marketing motion is anything if you can target those industries that have compliance issues. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Great verticals to look at. So a little bit about myself. I'm about cloud computing veteran. Cloud computing has been around for a long time. It hasn't always been called cloud computing. We love the marketing and buzzwords that big companies throw around and that get latched onto. But I have seen a lot in the 5+ years that I've been doing this. I've sold everything from direct to end customer through the channel. I've retrained resellers. I've retrained resellers on how to train. So I've seen a lot, and I've successfully, consistently been able to show partners how to, obtain and sustain 45 to 55% margin on cloud services. Both through, solid pricing from the vendor that they're working with, but also through the, the scalability of the solution, being able to do more with less. You have a standard set of engineers or workers that you're going to try to work within. How do you get more out of them without asking them to work longer hours and work more? And one of the things that you can do is, look at automation and look at, scalability or turning complex tasks into simpler support tasks to keep your best people focused on the hardest projects. And really, what I've seen is the cloud is an educational sale. I spend the majority of my time educating our partners, their employees, and their clients on not just the economical advantages, but really the operational advantages of cloud computing. It's a great medium for us to deliver content, whether it be leisure content or business productivity content, to an endpoint anywhere, anytime.
Yep, absolutely. When you talked about what cloud computing has been called, I was gonna make mention. I mean, back in the old days, it's called time sharing, but I don't want to go back that far.
Exactly. I was getting ready for this morning. I was kind of going through some old material. I was watching a YouTube video on the 2011 Cloud Expo conference where Steve Schuckenbrock from Dell was talking about how he sat in the Javits Center, or in a place close to the Javits Center, 26 years before, and they're talking about the PC era. And sitting on the precipice of this, massive shift in the IT industry of, which PC operating system was going to take off. He said, we're sitting here 26 years later, and we're talking about another very dynamic shift in the way IT is consumed. And I just kind of a little nostalgia. It brought a lot back to me, watching that keynote.
Yeah, I mean, along those lines, one of our people, in fact, the gentleman's on the webinar, I was chatting with him earlier today, and he's joined us as an attendee, but we had exactly that talk. The shift in the industry, the transformation that's going on is bewildering, ambiguous, exciting, scary. But we're really in one of those times, and that's what makes your message so relevant, is that the paradigm is being defined, right? It's being defined on what it's going to look like as we come out the other side.
Yeah, exactly. You look at the companies, Microsoft, Dell, Google, the list of VMware and Citrix. You look at the big companies; they're putting a lot of money and a lot of energy behind this whole movement, and it's not going away. I mean, I think a few years ago it was kind of, well, is this going to be around forever? I think it is. I mean, there's you don't look at that type of investment on that scale and have something just kind of disappear overnight. Yeah, this is around. There's a lot of driving forces behind it. We'll get into those in a little bit.
Absolutely.
So let me get back onto the screen here. So let's talk about this. The idea behind this was Mythbusters, the Cloud Edition, right? And there are a lot of myths around cloud computing, and a lot of there's not always a lot of hesitation, but what is best for my customer? And one of the things I often recommend is let's not focus on how the cloud or cloud services get delivered, because there's vendors and there's different ways and there's methodologies. Let's look at the business outcome of those services. What problems are we trying to solve? This kind of, as we go through this, you'll see different things kind of flash upon the screen, and the backup and disaster recovery as a service, Office 365. These are all great solutions, and they solve very unique problems. Infrastructure as a service, being able to take that SDS 2003 server and say, well, let's get that out of the office. You don't need to do that anymore. We can consume resources from over here. You can look at hosting QuickBooks. Being able to give your accountant the ability to connect without having to VPN in, or all these wonky kind of inconsistent ways of delivering a solution. But my argument in some regard, and Harry, this might sound like an obvious statement, but when you step back and think about all of the cloud services that you can cobble together to reach what I would call a kind of a quote-unquote complete solution, you'll realize you're working in silos. Your backup and DR company is different than your Office 365 company, is different than your infrastructure provider, is different. You kind of look at it and you go, wow, how am I managing this? And you have people in your organization as a service provider that they really understand the backup products, or they really understand how to deploy Office 365, or they really get the software as a service, which is actually just kind of thrown in there. I mean, that's something that we're all dealing with today, and that's actually stripping away value or revenue from service providers as more and more line of business applications move to a SaaS model. It's one less thing on-prem for a service provider to manage. So these are all the kind of driving forces, but the fact that you're working in this silo, it becomes very difficult to scale and difficult to manage at times.
I concur. Yeah, I concur with that. Absolutely.
So if we look at it from the workspace as a service standpoint, where the workspace is being delivered as a service, it really can become the glue that can hold together all of these other things. Kind of referring to what we're looking at on the screen here. Probably one of my best analogies when you're talking about the glue that holds it all together is you have one throat to choke, and ease of management. So you look at this and you say, all right, well, if I have a workspace as a service, I have all my applications, I have all of my data. We're talking about backup, disaster recovery built right in, all of the security and permissions that they need. If they need a SaaS application, it's a web browser. You connect to it through that desktop. You have one portal to go through. So if the user wants to bring their own device, that's great. There's no data residing on that device. That gets stolen, lost, or the employee goes rogue, you need to terminate them. All you need to do is shut off access. So you're delivering that functionality to any device from anywhere.
Well, and on that last point, I'll tell you, I've run a business. A lot of people listening have run a business, and that last point's a really valid point. Is sadly, there's hirings and there's terminations, and boy howdy, when you have a termination, you sure learn a lot about your IT infrastructure. And what I really like about desktop as a service is the ability to just flip that key, turn that off. You know what I mean? I've been there, brother.
Yeah, exactly. So you pay for what you use. I was talking to, we were working with a Fortune 500 company, or we still are, and early on during the discovery phase, and they had talked about how every time they hire a new employee, it's 45 or I think it's like $45 or $50 to ship a laptop. That's not even including the cost of the laptop. And they very rarely recuperated that cost when the employee was terminated. They're talking about a couple $100,000 a quarter in just shipping costs, shipping devices and things all over the place. Where if they were to take that same money and allocate it out, they'd give each employee a stipend, say $500 for an 18-month or 24-month period, and they could bring whatever device they want. And to them, that was really compelling because not only were they saving money, but they're also increasing their operational advantages and efficiency.
Yep, very cool.
So let's jump in. Market justifications. Everywhere you look, you see, this percentage of people is doing this, and you can make and spin numbers any way you want. But I was doing a little bit of research here this morning, and a few articles kind of jumped out at me and really blew me away. One was an IDC report on virtual client computing, and there's probably a few people on this line that are familiar with this as we've talked about it and used it before. But they're saying that the market, this virtual client computing market, will grow from $3.1 billion, and this is as of 2014, to $4.7 billion in 2018. And that's representing a 5-year compound annual growth rate of, I believe it was a 10.5%. I mean, that's pretty monumental. If you get 10.5% on any investment that you're making, that's a pretty good return on your money. And that's just getting started in this, the virtual client workspace. Talking about application delivery, desktop delivery, workspace delivery. It went on, and we've talked about this, and I've seen it. Why is this accelerating in the market? Why is it accelerating so quickly? And there's a few factors. The bring your own device revolution. There's no question that this is a huge driving force. And there's debates on either side whether how prolific it is. I can tell you from what I've seen, our company alone, we do not issue laptops anymore. We send out a Chromebook, and the employee has the ability to work on the Chromebook or their own device. It's really up to them. But that's it. That's essentially a mobile thin client that we send out and you connect to the cloud desktop, and you have everything you need. More people using more devices is another big point there. Sorry, go ahead, Harry. It sounded like you had something to add.
Yeah, well, I might have to edit out that reference to just shipping out Chromebooks. You realize we're based in Seattle.
I do.
Yeah, you realize we're going to have to censor that comment back in the editing room, but that's okay, man. It's a free country.
Yeah, no worries. Well, maybe that's why my internet's going a little wonky right now. But as far as the bring your own device revolution, millennials and the Gen Z, they want the freedom. People, they have the ability to work in college, whether it be Blackboard or through other tools, from whatever device they carried around, whether it be their iPad or MacBook or their Surface tablet or whatever other device was convenient. Security threats, cybersecurity threats. It seems like a week doesn't go by where we're not hearing something on the news, and we can't take the "it won't happen to me" approach. So if you have that server in your closet and employees have access to it, or that it's under that leaky pipe, or you don't have the backup power. I mean, there's a lot of compelling reasons why things should move to a private cloud inside the data center. Talked about it a little bit. I think the fourth reason here, maybe the third and fourth reason kind of go together. Your distributed workforces. So you can increase your footprint, right? If you're based out of one physical location, but you're the best person for the job that you're looking to hire for is in another physical location hundreds of miles away. There's prior limitations that said, that person had to be close enough to come into the office. And now it's just not the case. It's not the same way as it used to be. And this is the type of technology that allows the flexibility for a business to I'd say, swing up a few weight classes, to compete against an enterprise type solution or an enterprise company by going after that same level of talent.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way. Boy, you really do this for a living.
I've had this conversation a few times. You can say that, absolutely. Yeah, and the one last fact before I don't want to dwell too much on this stuff. There are a few more things I want to get through just out of some notes here, but IDC report goes on to talk about the workspace as a service market, itself growing from 466 million in 2014 to 1.7 billion in 2018. So if you're talking about a hockey stick curve, we're really kind of just now getting into the meat of it, and there's plenty of time for anybody that's not into this, not in this service, not providing this as a service yet, to start having that conversation with the service providers out there, start educating themselves and their clients on, the benefits that both they and their client will glean from it.
Yeah, hey Scott, that last point did not display. Just FYI, folks, there's a fourth bullet point about, again, IDC. Only 25% of enterprises have what can be considered repeatable managed. There we go, sir. There's the last point. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a few macro drivers that we see, when it comes to the market, right, itself. Ubiquitous connectivity. No matter where you go, I'm on the night. Harry, probably similar to yourself. We're on the road multiple nights out of the year. You're on an airplane. You're in a hotel. You're at the airport. There's almost no point in time that I don't have an internet connection. And when I do, it's actually kind of nice. It's quiet. I can read a book and do something other than work. And that wasn't always the case. It used to have to be tethered to the wall or somewhere with Wi-Fi that was reliable to be able to gather this type of service. And, today it's out there. It's available.
Yeah, boy, that's a whole nother webinar, let me tell you.
Yeah, no question. So and then virtualization. The virtualization suppliers in the market today are pushing it. The data center, the economics in the data center are driving the cost of data center resources down, and the SMB and the SME, businesses are able to reap the benefits of, those economies of scale.
Very cool.
So let's throw the second poll up there for now while I get ready for our Mythbusters, our true Mythbusters slide. Oh, I may have leaked in just a second too soon.
Yep. I've been waiting in the sides. Yep. Don't let the cat out of the bag quite yet. Hey, Jenny, if you're out there and able in the control room, able to throw that second poll up. Thank you, Jenny. Okay, Scott, I see it on the screen. In the past 6 months, folks, if you could go ahead and answer the question.
I always find this to be an interesting one too. We work with a lot of different types of businesses, and it's interesting to see more and more that really I think it was option 3 where it's side by side, showing an on-prem version versus a cloud version. And that's been interesting to see that shift over the years, as, away from, well, if they ask for it, I'll show it to them. So it's really an exciting time.
Yeah, it's quite again what you said, and it's really unbelievable what's going on out there. Okay, here are the poll results. What do we have?
Good question. I can't see the poll results on this one, so maybe if you can see them, you want to read them out, that'd be great.
Sure, no problem. So we have never at a small 3%. Only when they ask for cloud services at 17%. I like Donald Trump at 63%. Sorry, I provide all clients. I had to have a little humor, man. I provide, and that's all it is. I provide all clients a cloud option in my quotes. That's 63%. I only sell cloud services, 10%. That doesn't surprise me. That's a small number because I think there's diversity still, of course. And then 7%, I don't sell cloud services. Scott, I would offer that last one. I don't sell cloud services at 7%. I would offer that that's declining rapidly. There was some hostility, as you well know, a few years ago with the Steve Ballmer saying we're all into the cloud and Well, let's just say he's gone now. But I don't. That number's dropping dramatically. All right, sir. Let's play MythBusters. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So, first myth that I need you to bust is, and forgive my Texas accent and pronouncing some of the acronyms, but I'm going to roll with it. DaaS and WAS are one and the same, sir.
That's a great question. They're not one and the same. That is a myth. Desktop as a service really is more of a hollow shell. Think a computing system that needs to be put together, right? It provides you the operating system, but it is up to you typically as a service provider to bring in the storage, install the applications, provide the back-end connectivity, really do all of it. Where workspace as a service, the notion behind workspace as a service, it is a full turnkey offering. So out of the gate, you're able to print. Your applications, you can either install or it can be installed for you right away. There's shared drives and personal drives created for each user. All the group policies and firewall rules and virtual VLAN are all created during the time of provisioning. You can, out of the gate, connect. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, we're good.
Sorry. All right, great. Yeah, so the desktop, think of a hollow shell. You're responsible for the workspace. Is ready for everything and ready to be delivered to any device anytime.
Okay, there we go. So let's take on the second one that I'm going to ask you, and it's the BYOD movement is better managed with a WAS solution.
The BYOD movement, we may have gotten out of order there a little bit, but that's okay. I'll take that one. I would say it is. You can lock down the device, you can monitor the device, you can wipe the device. But at the end of the day, security by obscurity is probably one of the easiest methods to employ. So if a user can't access that data because they don't have access to it, that's better than having given them access at all to begin with. And in a simple to manage workspace as a service solution, it's as simple as throwing a switch and saying, lock that user out. Their password no longer works, and you lock down the ability to move data to and from that local, the cloud to the local environment, and it's done that way. So there's a number of different approaches, but I would argue that is a fact that it is easier to manage, to bring your own device movement in a WAS solution.
Okay, so we're going to call that true. So the third point is VDI and DaaS are enterprise solutions. So VDI and desktop as a service are enterprise solutions. Myth or true?
This actually could kind of go both ways. So a little ambiguous, but VDI and the providers behind VDI were built for the enterprise. So think about Citrix and VMware and the tools that they provide for large IT departments and the one-to-one user to virtual machine ratio. Where desktop as a service is really, yes, it can be done at the enterprise level. You don't see it as much. It really, the desktop as a service is, at the price point for an SMB or SME with the tools and the sophistication that they require with their applications and their types of users, versus the enterprise solution. So both are a little bit different. VDI is designed for more of an enterprise solution out of the gate, with those tools having been retrofitted for a service provider and an SMB model. So leave that as that's still a question mark. I didn't really bust that one very well, did I?
Yeah. That's all right. That's all right. That's the real world. Okay, next one. This is a passing fad and won't be relevant in 5 years.
I would say that's a myth. This is, if you look at the types of applications that businesses are still using, Microsoft dominates the landscape. And those Microsoft, operating system applications, they're going to have a really long tail on them. If someone comes out with a new container to deliver business applications in, maybe that will change. But for the time being, your traditional line of business applications are going to be the way that that businesses are going to continue to work, and users are going to expect an environment that's familiar and comfortable for them.
And what I would add is I've heard this before about virtual desktops and basically this surrounding technology, and heard it before, but I mean, if you go back, good Lord, early in my career, I remember at the Seattle Ballet or Seattle Symphony or some gig with Weiss dumb terminals, and I think we were literally using Citrix at the time
Mhm.
to attach to, the mothership and have people run telemagic to do
Oh,
telemarketing sales and some other things. Um, but we've had this conversation a number of times, and I concur with you that's a myth, that it's a passing fad.
yeah.
You know.
Harry, you just
Okay,
blew me
next
away.
one.
You know somebody else that's used Telemagic. I used that for the first 5 years of my career, and I know that piece of software very intimately.
Yeah, and I've been around a little bit.
Yep.
So next one is security is a major concern when it comes to desktop as a service. Security is a major concern when it comes to desktop as a service.
Yeah, so I think security is always a major concern. We play in a very, not only cutthroat, but you know, easily preyed upon, section of the market, and playing with lots of sensitive data. There's always people that could benefit from having access to things that they shouldn't. But I would say it's a concern to the extent that we're always concerned about it. But DaaS does mitigate the risks and the concern around security. Being able to monitor who's added a file, deleted a file, or removed a file. You terminate an employee, what did they do for the last 30 days? Well, we can run a report and tell you exactly what they did. Where did that file go? Okay, well, let's get it back. The backup and disaster recovery built right in. So the data center falls into the center of the earth. Well, there's another data center, and your storage and everything that you have is being replicated to that other data center. So we can bring you back online and get you back up and running. The physical security, you can talk about that all day, but as long as your provider, in this case, nGenx, is all housed in Tier 4 data centers. You have biometric scanning and physical security. You've got closed circuit television. So unless you're running that type of operation inside of your small business, I would say that desktop as a service is more secure than what you're able to obtain today in a localized setting.
Yeah, exactly. So, folks, we're at the bottom of the hour. I want to go ahead and do a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into a couple more myths. So, everybody, take a sip of coffee. First of all, ask your questions via the chat feature. I see that I have one question queued up. Scott, why don't we get through the last couple myths, and then maybe we can start to tackle the questions. How's that sound to kind of keep the flow going, as it were?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, perfect. And then, folks, just if you came in late, want a shout out. We're having a 3-day jam session in Redmond, October 2nd through 4th. So it's the 365 Win 10 Azure Jam session for 3 days up here in just a few weeks. Hit me offline if you want more information, or check out smbnation.com. So Scott, let me get away from my announcements and go back to a couple myths. So the next myth, sir, is custom applications don't play well in the cloud.
That is a myth. Custom applications can play well in the cloud. It's a matter of working with a company that has a long-standing experience with application compatibility scripts, with system configurations, and identifying ways to take that custom and legacy application that was designed to run on-prem and deliver a solution that allows you to consume that via the cloud.
Excellent. Yeah, because you're right. This is a point of contention, very common conversation. Okay, sir, are you ready for the next myth to tackle?
Let's do it.
Okay. On-premises solutions are always going to be cheaper.
Let's see if I can find that one here.
No problem.
There we go. On-premises solutions are always going to be cheaper. That is also a myth. When I first started doing this, again, 5+ years ago, it was very common that was the case. The economy of scale had not reached the price point where building it on site, even if you amortize it over 3 years, it made more sense to keep it on site than to build out in a cloud solution. It is very rapidly dropped, and that is due to there's pressure in the market. There's a demand. There's data center pricing is coming down. Storage pricing is coming down. I would argue now that it's probably 70-30 in favor of the cloud. There are still some some models and some businesses that they don't need all this. They're Office 365 and a local version of QuickBooks. That's going to run their business for them. But you start looking at verticals like accounting or law firms or construction, and they have heavier line of business applications, and we can monitor, maintain, and deliver that back-end infrastructure at a far cheaper price point per user than building it out on-prem. And now, where 3 years, amortizing that cost over 3 years with support services wasn't getting it done, you can now look at it over a 5 or 6 year period of that server life, and you're still looking at if it's not break even, it's a little cheaper to be in the cloud. And that changes the economics of a service provider's business, being able to capture that type of recurring revenue over a 5 or 6 year period, versus that one-time project revenue.
Yeah, exactly. No, good. Okay, sir, the last one we have is Amazon, Citrix, and VMware are major competitors in the DaaS space, desktop as a service space.
I'd say that's a fact. In the sense that Amazon, has a desktop as a service product. They do call it workspace as a workspace solution, but they are asking you to put together the final pieces and put your touch on it and understand their management console. Citrix and VMware have been long-time players in the space. Great pieces of software and very well respected in the industry. I would not call them so much as a service, desktop as a service provider. They're not wrapping in all of the other pieces that you need to deliver the solution. They'll give you the box of puzzle pieces, and they'll show you what the picture's supposed to look like. But as far as handing you a frame picture, that's where the desktop as a service provider comes in.
Okay. Why don't we, sir, if you're agreeable, why don't we proceed? And we're starting to queue up some questions. So if you're agreeable to that.
Absolutely. So just a few, maybe a few parting words, and then we'll do the questions, or do you want to do the questions first?
Nope. Go ahead and roll with your observations, and then we'll take the questions, in order.
Perfect. So as a service provider, it is not too late to get involved. As I mentioned, we're at a very good part in the growth cycle of the market. A few things. You'll see customers are going to the cloud. We want you to be their guide. Talk to them about it. Educate them on it. Find out why. It's very important for the service provider to have that conversation with them. If they're not, in a lot of cases, another managed service provider or VAR is going to have that conversation. So they're going to hear about it some way or somehow. One of the ways to capture this in a fixed fee reoccurring. Am I breaking up?
Oh, I think I can still hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, loud and clear. Great. So one of the ways to capture this type of revenue is to bundle it with your existing services. So again, going back to the glue, the desktop as a service or workspace as a service being the glue for your business, bundle your RMM tools and your help desk services and your VCIO services, and package it as one fixed fee per user per month. You're taking that project revenue, which some would argue would be low value when you're talking about business valuations. That project revenue is one time, and you have that in a customer list, versus the recurring revenue where you're looking at a much higher multiple if you ever did want to sell your business, and you're capturing that revenue over a period of time consistently. And it's a very sticky solution. I mean, it's once you have the customers there and they're happy, your team's happy because managing them is very simple. It's a very easy model to get behind once you have a little bit of experience with it. So
absolutely.
Those are my parting words, and have a conversation, reach out to us. I'm happy to have a call or discuss or do a demo of our control plane anytime somebody wants, and we can go through a lot of this in a much more personalized fashion.
Yeah, and I think the time is now to pursue that conversation. Again, we've gone this conversation. Here's the good news: it never goes away. Maybe the bad news is it kind of comes and goes in popularity, but again, as we sit here at mid-decade, good Lord, 2015. Guys, I get it. You probably had a conversation. I certainly did around 2011. I looked pretty deeply into this area. Is great. I mean, I could be working at a particular area on a computer at home, ride my bike up to the office, and be deposited at exactly the same spot where I was working before, right, with sort of the virtual desktop scenario. So with that said, we have some questions. This is actually a really good one. The individual says, you may want to actually say what these acronyms stand for, VDI and WAAS. That's a valid point. I think, Scott, sometimes we get so comfortable we forget to define. Maybe we should do a glossary real quick here, if you don't mind.
No, yeah, absolutely. So VDI is virtual desktop infrastructure. And really what the concept around that is, it's a one virtual machine to one user relationship, typically managed with gold master images. It's a byproduct of the enterprise where the business owns the infrastructure, whether it's being delivered from an on-site or on-premises data center or an off-premises data center. It is more private cloud than I would say, a multi-tenanted, shared architecture.
Okay, workspace. Yep.
So WAS, workspace as a service. So workspace as a service was really born out of DaaS, which is desktop as a service. Desktop as a service didn't go far enough in describing this, the service providers, the desktop as a service providers, what they were doing. It was no longer just an operating system that you had to cobble together the rest of the solution. The workspace as a service is everything that end user, that end client needs to complete their day-to-day functions, whether it's working from their laptop or working from their smartphone, being able to print from their home office or print from their work office. This embodies and encompasses everything that they need to do on a day-to-day basis. So that's the WAS, the workspace concept.
Great. Okay, I'm getting a couple questions on cost. One person just put cost. Another person articulated a little bit more. So we'll roll with the second one, and that is, what are the average prices for VDI now, given Office 365 at $150 a year, and what does VDI add in cost?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it really is a client-by-client discussion. But I think you could say on average, we are very disruptive with our pricing in the market. So even if you took our high pricing, no volume concessions at roughly $40 per user per month, and you receive the fully remote desktop backup, disaster recovery, your antivirus for the hosted desktop, again, all the functionality that goes along with a remote or mobile workforce and security and compliance, that includes your business applications, a little bit of storage, and your Office 365, is still there and accessible. So, you can build a really robust solution at a price point all into the end user with margin. We'll take say a 15-person company with some basic line of business applications for less than $130 per user per month. And again, that's all in with your margin. Server costs, infrastructure, help desk, monitoring, management, and we can show you those numbers on a separate call and talk specifics.
Sure. Next question: have you addressed AutoCAD or other graphics programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one that often comes up, and one that as I'm working with new service providers, I ask them to please not run out and go find the largest architecture firm that they can find in their area and sell them on this. And it's not because you can't do it. It's because you can do it, but it takes a lot of specifics, right? So we have a power user concept that allows you to do a one server to one user ratio, similar to VDI, but still using the server OS. You can manage RAM and CPU very granularly. So you can dial it up for specific users that need it for those graphic-intensive applications. But I would recommend a Windows 8 device versus a thin client. I'd recommend bandwidth. Let's take a look at what type of bandwidth they have coming into their office and make sure it's sufficient. Microsoft has made huge gains over the last 3 to 4 years on Citrix and their protocols for the delivery and compression of data over the wire. So. The answer is yes, you can do it. The longer answer is let's sit down and talk about it and make sure it can be done based on where the client is, what the client what their current setup is with devices.
Next question. Hey, this is great. We're getting a lot of questions. How does McAfee data loss prevention suite integrate with nGenx WAS solution?
That's a good question. It's not one I've come across. I'm certainly familiar with McAfee, but not one I've looked at. So, that's, again, if somebody has interest in looking at that solution, I'd be more than happy to have a conversation offline with them and look at the specifics.
Yeah, and then what I would offer is when you get the transcripts from the webinar, you'll be able to identify who asked that question, and you could give them an answer offline.
That'd be great.
I totally get it. Couple questions from an individual, 2 questions. Number 1, how many desktop/employees where it really starts to make financial sense? Okay, so kind of what's your break-even point?
Mm-hmm.
And then number 2, what are the bandwidth requirements?
Yep, 2 very good questions. So let's take the bandwidth requirements first, because that's fairly easy to address. My recommendation, and although you can get by with less, in order to protect us and your customers and yourself, somewhere between 100 and 150 kilobits per user. It depends on the operating system. It depends on the way that they work. So that's a safe bet. I work remotely all the time. I work on a 3G connection oftentimes, and it works. So it's about kind of setting the proper expectations around that. As far as the break-even point, the numbers today, I talk to MSPs and service providers all the time about standardizing their 5 to 15 users. Those companies that are between 5 users and 15 users, and standardizing all of them. This is a blueprint. We provide you a step-by-step methodology to put them on a program that will give them all the functionality and features that they need, at the same time reducing your cost and your burden for those customers, which are oftentimes the noisiest customers and the least profitable. So again, bring up your best resources to focus on the hardest problem. Now, that's just standardization. This is a solution that will work from 5 users up to 500 users very, very easily. And it's a matter of what are the specifics of each opportunity. But that's the beauty of the workspace as a service product. Is it really spans verticals, it spans company sizes, and it gives a lot of companies the opportunity to indulge in technology that they otherwise might not have access to.
Very cool. Let me scroll down. Oh boy, man, there's a lot of.
We've hit a nerve.
I'm telling you, man, I might have to get another cup of coffee. Okay, here we go. Just an idea for an investment for SMB types. I have small call centers. Just want to know if there's something I can mention to my clients. Not quite sure what the question is. Investment idea for SMB types. I have a small call center. Sir. Okay, so the individual serving small call centers. I thought maybe we had the owner of a call center. Just want to know something that I could mention this to my clients. Now that kind of makes sense in terms of my experience with the Seattle Ballet and the Weiss Thin terminals, and I mean that's essentially a call center. But Scott, you can answer it better than me.
Yeah, so I think if I'm looking at a call center opportunity, this is a really nice solution. One, it allows you to extend the life of existing workstations. You don't need a lot of horsepower, so it goes to the Wise terminal conversation, or even bricking an old thick client. So Windows XP. All right, well let's just turn it into a dumb client. There are nonprofits, there's businesses out there that just don't want to spend the money, and give them a virtualized solution with either the single application or the 1 or 2 applications that they need. In a call center, you have a cubicle, and more than one person is probably going to fit in that cubicle per day. So instead of named users, you can do it per cubicle, and allow the application itself to differentiate who's sitting down at it once they're signed in. So a couple of neat things you can do on that side of the world.
Exactly. A couple questions are redundant. We've answered, but I just want to acknowledge we had client size. We've kind of talked about that. How to present ROI to prospects. I think we've touched on that. Do you want to put a cherry on top of that whipped cream? Present ROI to prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. So the specific ROI client to client is going to vary. But what we can show you is an on-premises solution versus a desktop as a service or a workspace as a service solution side by side. And when you compare it apples to apples, I actually had a partner the other day. We went through this exercise. We did a quote, build it all out, and we put it in a TCO and an ROI calculator. He showed that TCO and ROI calculator to his customer. And the customer, with some more colorful words than what I'll use on this webinar, pretty much said, "Are you giving me an IQ test? Or why are you giving me this IQ test?" The numbers were so obvious between the operational advantages and the cost advantages. That why are you showing me this? So I'm happy to have that conversation with somebody and kind of go through how I would recommend pricing and bundling this to a client and to specific clients in particular.
Yeah, and you've almost kind of answered the next question in a way. It's a little broader, but the question is, what are the entry considerations for a partner to resell your solution? And you were just kind of getting there, that you're happy to kind of work with the partners one-on-one, or prep them to go out and multiply opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a full account management team. We have a full team of sales engineers as well as project managers for the onboarding and sales part of the process. As far as getting started with us, it's a pretty straightforward partner agreement. Various levels of partner commitment. So and the pricing varies and what's involved. So I'd be more than happy to go through that on a per customer basis, and we can determine what's the best fit for your business.
Yeah, and guys, what I would offer is that's kind of what the motion of a webinar is that, listen, we have an hour together, just a few minutes left, but we have an hour together today, and the idea is to get a taste of this and then follow up with Scott, or Scott will follow up with you. He'll have your contact information, and that's where you go to the deep dive, and that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, let me
I will add, there is the ability to get into the program without any cost. So just so in case people are scared about commitments and volume, there is a let's get in and let's just get playing with this level with us.
Has the pricing on thin clients fallen below PCs? The gentleman goes on to talk about CPU count and memory count and all that, but let's keep it at a high level. It's actually a really good question because, again, I loved Weiss terminals back in the day, and I guess Dell acquired Weiss, blah, blah, blah. But the fundamental question is are dumb terminals cheaper than PCs today?
That's a great question.
Thin clients.
Thin clients.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think depending on what you want, just like anything, depending on what you want out of it and what you're willing to spend, you can find something to meet your needs. I have a love-hate relationship with a lot of the devices I work on. All of the horsepower and all the processing, obviously, is happening in the data center, and then you're contingent on the size of the pipe to send those, keystrokes, mouse clicks, and screenshots down to the end device. So if you don't need any local processing power, you can, thin clients work great. If for some reason, you're running something that does need a little bit of acceleration or a little bit of a boost, that PC is going to work a little bit better. So standardizing is great, but it's also, make sure that, it's fitting the application. It kind of goes back to one of my earlier points that, what is the business outcome that we're solving for?
Yeah, no, always. Okay, I'm going to speed up a little bit. Dual or triple monitor? I'm shorthanding a question that was a paragraph, but dual or triple monitor support, sir?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. The next is, do you provide all the security support, or does the user have to integrate it? So security and integration, who provides?
There's quite a bit of security built in. If the customer wants to add a dual-factor authentication or a mobile device management solution, that would be incumbent upon the service provider. But they baked into the workspace, there is password rules and reset rules and audit logging as far as who's done what when, lockout reports. So SSAE 16. So all the data center and all those pieces are factored in and put together. Any of the peripheral stuff can be incorporated, but we've discussed it on a specific basis.
Sure. Recommended endpoint equipment and local printer support. I'm not quite sure what the question is. I mean, our relationship is historically with Lenovo. I don't know if that's really what the question is. Sir, do you have a relationship with the OEMs? Do you have a recommendation for endpoint equipment?
No, endpoint commitment is a pretty agnostic solution from that standpoint. Across from your mobile device right straight through to your thick client and thin clients and everything in between. As far as printing, that is a question that often comes up, and we do incorporate an enterprise printing solution right into our package that maps the print drivers through, compresses the print job, and does a really nice job of simplifying printing from virtual to local. And the best rule of thumb that we use is if you can print from your local device, you're going to be able to print from your cloud device. And there's only a few little things that would change that scenario, and it's a simple configuration on the back end.
Cool. Couple minutes left. Standard SLA agreement, sir.
Yes, we do have one. Specifics, I would have to go back to my notes and look at it, and there's a variety of things that we are held to on our SLA. But at the very highest of levels, we're at 4 nines or 5 nines at the data center level. I believe it's 5 nines.
We got a dual display. We answered that. How does DaaS, WAS work with users that need USB connected devices, scanners, medical attachments, and cameras?
So there's a few ways to pass those through. Microsoft, again, has done a great job with their latest technology in both their 8.1 devices and the 10 devices. That works and plays really well with the Server OS 2012 R2. Again, we'd look at specifics. We'd do a little bit of testing and make sure that your specific application would work inside of our environment before we went all the way down the rabbit hole and had the customer sign up and just to find out at day one when they go live that something doesn't work. That's all done ahead of time.
Okay, this one you've actually answered, but we'll hit it head on. Can the MSP integrate their RMM solution? You had a slide. I believe the answer is yes.
So we recommend that they integrate their RMM solution still on the endpoint. It would be kind of like double coverage, though, in the cloud itself, because we are doing our own remote monitoring and management of those servers and of those cloud desktops. Would we preclude them from doing it? No. Would I recommend doing it? It's just eating into your margins. You're going to get the same alert that we get at the same exact time, only we have the ability to affect change. In most cases, you may not. So yes and no.
Okay, no problem. We have another printer question. We've kind of hit that one. The USB question, we've hit that. Scott, you're going to see all the questions. So you may have a need to, follow up individually. I'm giving a very high-level overview of some repeat questions, but there may be a follow-up that would make sense for you. So, folks, with that said, that's actually the final question. We are at time. And appreciate you taking time out of your busy day, especially as everybody gets back to work after Labor Day, to join us for the weekly webinar. Scott, congratulations. I mean, I think the new format was a home run. People liked it, and certainly the amount of questions. I'm trying to think of when we had 30 minutes of questions recently, so that's a real good sign. Folks, we'll see you next week. You're going to receive a thank you email from us tomorrow with a replay link and so on. And don't forget that we have a 3-day Office 365 Win 10 and Azure Jam session up at Microsoft Redmond, October 2nd through 4th. Hit me offline or at harrybsmbnation.com or visit the site smbnation.com for more information. And literally bring your musical instrument. I mean, when we say jam session, Saturday night we're actually having a jam session. Carl Katz is on the webinar today. We'll be leading that. So, Scott, thanks to you and your team for putting this all together. Great webinar. And we'll talk to everybody soon.
Thank you, Harry. Appreciate you and your team. Have a great day.